Welcome back. All right, so panic index time, which means I don't really have to hide which magnets I have coming up next. I've got these arranged by division, and the divisions ranked according to who's number 1 through number 8, according to the NHL's official standings currently. So it's not by points percentage. At the top of the board, these are teams and fan bases that should be quite happy. Media should be quite happy. At the bottom, we've got this wonderful Morty magnet, which is panicked. I've had this for like 3 years. The Ramstein magnet is new. I got that from their website because it was like, when am I not going to want to use a Ramstein magnet on both channels? And because Ramstein concerts feature a lot of fire, I saw 2 of them last month. Fire, hot, hot, good. Good means goes to the top of the board. And over here, trap magnet, because there are teams who don't have any expectation this year, and they're playing well. They're capable of playing the spoiler role, and you got them coming up. Odds are they may win some more games than you'd expect, and I would think their fans are pretty happy with their level of effort to this point in the season. So starting off with the Atlantic Division, and at the top are the Boston Bruins. Now, they suffered a setback last night, but still, this start has been remarkable without McAvoy, without Marchand, without Grzelcyk. Key guys out of the lineup, and yet Boston's finding ways to win. Bergeron has looked fantastic. Pasternak's looked amazing. Even though Swayman, I'm a little bit concerned about him in the net. Ullmark's been very good. And so overall, I think Boston fans probably pretty happy. Again, not much was expected of them at this point in the year. Detroit fans, I'm going to put them a little bit lower. Why? Because we're dealing with a situation now where injuries are starting to take hold again. They've lost Bertuzzi. Vrana's now out for personal reasons. They haven't discussed for how long. There'll probably be another news video before the games go live tonight, and we can discuss. But yeah, Detroit, I still think very happy, well above the line, right? The happiness line, as it were, or the panic line if you're underneath it. But and no reason to be concerned if you're a Detroit fan. Buffalo, yeah, Buffalo fans have to be very happy with the effort so far and the results, right? The win over Edmonton last night, Comrie steals it, but Buffalo has looked very composed so far this year, and they've looked quite good, and so they may very well be turning the corner a little sooner than expected by most. So Buffalo at least making things interesting early in the season. We'll see if they stay there. Florida, I'm going to put Florida in the same spot as Detroit. So the results have been okay early, right? Maybe not as many wins as you'd like early on in the season. But however, I mean, for Florida, things are still pretty good. Although with the loss of Ekblad, we'll see how they handle that and what the rest of the season looks like for them. But so far, I don't see any reason why Florida would be panicked. Toronto, I'm going to put them a little bit below the line. Now, this might be me being generous. I don't think there's a reason to panic in Toronto. Now, I've seen some posts from, oh, this guy's got to go or that guy's got to go. This is just going to be an awful season. I don't think that it's going to be. I'm putting them below the line, meaning there's a little bit of panic there, but I don't see any reason to be overly concerned if you're a Toronto fan right now. They're going to get it together. They'll be fine. Sure, the goaltending may be a little shaky, but that's not really anything that new when it comes to the Toronto side of things. Some concerns, of course, with the defense and the fact they keep getting injured. But yeah, I don't see any reason to put them down in this area just yet. Maybe later. Montreal fans, I think Montreal fans are happy. I'm tempted to put them over here as playing spoiler role, but we're still early and they're 2-2, and they looked good against Pittsburgh. They did. They looked quite good. Now, the one thing that might make you concerned is if you're a Montreal fan that believes, man, Connor Bedard looked fantastic in a Montreal jersey, the way they're playing could make their odds lessen of them being able to draft first and get Bedard. The good news is the draft in 2023 is deep. The offside with that, though, the bad news being Bedard looks like he's going to be very special. So if Montreal does play well enough not to end up getting Bedard, they may look back at this 5 years from now and say, man, if only we had. Ottawa fans, I don't think are panicked. They win that home opener last night 7-5. I'm going to put them on the positive side because I think there's still a lot of positive spin. They are 1-2, but they played well in all 3 games. So the good news is Ottawa hasn't had a bad game yet. The bad news is they've lost 2 out of 3. So I'll still put them on the positive side because I don't think that's enough to dampen people's excitement too much, especially within the Ottawa fan base. Maybe some casuals, maybe some people who aren't fans of the Senators that said, oh, they'll make the playoffs, look at the early results and say, well, maybe they need more time. But I think Ottawa's going to be just fine. Which brings us to Tampa. How does this happen? Now, for Tampa, I don't see any reason for there to be a panic. So I'm going to put them over here because I'm going to get them as far away from happiness or panic as possible. Tampa Bay's been in the Stanley Cup final 3 years in a row. Getting off to a rough start this year, I don't think is a problem. I think that for Tampa Bay, we know they're going to heat up. We know they're a playoff team. And I know there's going to be people who come and say, well, maybe not this year. Yeah, they're still going to be a playoff team. That being said, I'll leave them on the positive side, even though they're 1-3, because again, they've won three, or well, they've gone to 3 straight Stanley Cups and won 2 of them. So I don't see any reason why Tampa fans would be panicked. And if they are, seriously, you won 2 Stanley Cups. Carolina fans, I think, are quite excited and rightfully so. The Canes haven't really played anybody yet, though, so that's a problem. Now, to me, the interesting thing is that if Carolina had lost these games against lower ranked teams from last year, I think there would be a little bit of panic, but they're taking care of what they have to. They've only allowed a goal per game so far, so yeah, Carolina, no reason not to be happy. Philadelphia, I don't know how I feel about putting them at the top, but here we are. They're undefeated to start the season. I'm as surprised as anybody. I will say it's not that long ago they were actually one of the better teams in the East. And I think that what they've shown so far this year is with the right coaching, they could absolutely turn it around. So Philadelphia, against all expectations, right there on the board. And it's weird for me too. Which means Rangers, much in the same spot. And don't be surprised when there's a lot of teams in this area because good starts and all that fun stuff. Fans are going to be excited and everybody's a Stanley Cup champion until about the end of November. There are a few teams that'll fall out of that standing early. Sorry, San Jose. But generally, most fan bases are going to be like, okay, this could be a big year. And then by early November, mid-November, it starts to sink in that, well, maybe not for some of these teams. But for the Rangers, it's been a really good start. 3-1 start. Shesterkin hasn't even had to be as good as he was last year yet. I think he's going to get better, and that's bad news for the rest of the league when the team is 3-1 already. Pittsburgh, for Pittsburgh, I'm gonna put them here. There's obviously some minor injury issues going on here and there with Pittsburgh. The loss against Montreal being as it is and everything, I'm not going to put them right at the top. And I know there'll be Penguins fans say, nope, you should have put them at the top. But I'm going to put them next level down. 60 minutes is something we hear a lot about early in the season, and it is tough for teams to get dialed in for the full 60. And so for Pittsburgh, I think that has been an issue at points. But again, they've got a good record. Odds are playoff team, absolutely. And yeah, I mean, if they can maintain some level of good health, there shouldn't be any reason they can't get 100 plus points and get into the playoffs yet again. Islanders, I'm going to say there's some cautious optimism with the Islanders right now. They have a positive record. They did beat San Jose. Now San Jose, of course, 0-5 and looking like some had expected and worse than expected in my case. And I mean, I didn't expect much from San Jose, but their record so far is not great. But for the Islanders, I think there's some reason for optimism. They absolutely could bounce back. I've seen some picking them as a team that can get back into the playoffs, and that may be the case. My pick was Columbus, but Columbus is obviously not on the board yet because they've fallen off. The Islanders could end up getting that spot. Washington, I'm going to put Washington above the line because Washington, I think there's going to be some optimism about things right now. Their record isn't awful, right? So the record isn't bad. They've had some rough starts here and there, but Ovechkin looks like he's going to get things going. It's nice of the Canucks to get guys out of slumps. Gaudreau, Ovechkin, etc., etc. But yeah, for Washington, I think they're going to be fine. That being said, there's teams that are going to, I think, fall out of the playoffs in the East that are unexpected, and Washington's been a pick for some. But so far, I think they've played well enough that they'll be in the hunt, and if they're in the hunt, I don't rule out a team with Ovechkin on it making the playoffs. New Jersey, the Devils didn't get the kind of start that they wanted. I'm going to put them in concerned. You know what? No, I'm going to put them right near the panic. Not quite on the panic, but close. For New Jersey, I think for fans, you have two concerns. One, they get off to a really rough start, and they end up having to fire Lindy Ruff and start over kind of thing. Or they recover from the rough start well enough that they don't fire Lindy Ruff. So there's that concern as well, right? Like Devils fans have been quite obvious, and loud about how they feel that the head coach could be the problem there, and everybody else seemed to get replaced, not Ruff. I don't think Ruff has a very long leash for this season. I don't think that if New Jersey say like 2-8 after their first 10, I don't think he lasts much past that if he lasts that long. But yeah, I think for New Jersey fans, they realize, this is the time when things should be getting better, and if they're not, then that's the time to make a change behind the bench. Columbus, there's definitely some reason for panic with Columbus, but I do think that there's plenty of time for recovery for Goudreau to start getting it together. And again, he seemed to start figuring things out last night against Vancouver, which tends to happen. People figure things out against Vancouver. It's really nice of him to be that way and be that willing to help others. But anyways, yeah, Columbus. I don't know how long they're going to go where they're struggling. I don't know how long the struggles are going to last, and it showed up last night too against the Canucks. Both Columbus and Vancouver were fighting it pretty bad at parts of that game last night. So we've got the East on the board, right? There's a lot of reason for optimism in the East, and there's 3 teams below that line in the East, 3 teams near that line in the East. So now we go to the West. We're starting with the Central Division. Dallas, yeah, Dallas belongs here. Dallas off to a very good start, and I mean, Robertson's been fantastic right away. Ottinger looks great, one of the 3 stars of the week in the NHL. There's a lot to like right now in Dallas, and Marchment is fitting in immediately. So, yeah, if you're a Dallas fan and you feel like, is that optimism I'm feeling? Yeah, me too. It can be scary, though, because, hope can be dangerous. Nashville. I'm going to put Nashville right down here on the line, or right just barely above the line. The thing is, they've won 2 games out of 5, both of those against San Jose. So for Nashville, they do need to get it together a little bit. They could not get that death blow on the Kings last night. And of course, Peterson playing better. But the third period, basically the Kings dominated Nashville in that third period before Nashville woke up in the overtime. Nashville needs to find that killer instinct to put a team away, which is not something that we're not used to seeing in the early going of the season. There are usually more comebacks early in the season than we see later. But yeah, what we're seeing right now in the NHL, we might see a record number of comebacks. Colorado's not. There's no reason for Colorado to be panicked. I'm putting them all the way over here. Why? Because I really don't think there's any reason why defending Stanley Cup champion fans would look at the team right now and say, I'm panicked. Even though they're going to be without Landeskog for 12 weeks, even though they're 2-1 and they haven't looked great yet. I don't think they've had the full 60 minutes either. But they just won the Stanley Cup. So I'll put them above the line. I'm tempted to put them up here, except then they become a trap team. They're not a trap team. So, yeah, I'll just put them over here just for safekeeping because defending Stanley Cup champions. No panic for defending Stanley Cup champions. St. Louis, just put them here. There's only the one game to go on, right? They won that one game. There you go. They're playing tonight. Obviously, everybody else in the league, they have games in hand on. It's about winning those games in hand. It is really early to talk about games in hand, but they have that. So, yeah, for St. Louis, we haven't seen enough from them for me to really put them here or, God forbid, put them down into here. Winnipeg. For Winnipeg, I'm going to put them a little bit below the line. I'm going to put them down here with Toronto. Concerning the game they had against Dallas. And they're 1-1 on the season, so I don't see any reason to have them down here. But definitely with them playing in Colorado tonight against, Chili McGee over here, the reality is that if Winnipeg gets off to a rough start, that could be bad news for the team, and we could see big changes. So if you're a Jets fan and you want to see changes to this roster, they'd kind of have to get off to a tough start to the season and force Kevin Cheveldayoff's hand. If they're good enough to be in the mix for the playoffs, good enough to be maybe a little bit above the playoff line, odds are we're not going to see major changes with the Jets. Chicago's a good trap team. Chicago, there's no expectation, but they've got Patrick Kane is still in that lineup. He's going to generate some offense. Mrazek's had a decent start to the season. Mrazek has shown in the past he can get on decent runs as a goaltender. The problem for him has been staying healthy. But yeah, Mrazek and Chicago, I think they're decent for a trap win here or there. They got that win over San Jose because San Jose. I apologize to Sharks fans for how many times I'm saying their team's name. I really am. Arizona is the ultimate trap team. So, I mean, I could basically, for trap games, just put an Arizona magnet up between two teams, and you'd be like, that means it's a trap. We saw that against Toronto. Arizona's not going to get outworked. They're not a very. I can't say they're not a very talented team. That's not fair. They're still an NHL team. Contrary to what I saw posted on Twitter the other day, I'm like, they're not that bad. But they're not a team that's going to wow you, and if it comes down to skill and back and forth and all that, they're probably going to lose the game. But they work hard, and it's something that Tourney instilled in this team last year, got them more wins than they otherwise would have, and it looks like it could happen again this year, where they're going to win more games than expected because that work ethic is absolutely top notch. So really, Arizona fans are probably pretty happy about things, though they are a trap team. Minnesota, right down here with Columbus. So expansion brethren, and they're right next to one another. Minnesota, it's been a tough start, and I really, I've said for a while now that, yeah, I mean, Fleury's not the same goaltender he was in 2018, but I thought he was good enough that with Minnesota's attack, he'd get them some wins. Early on, 20 goals against in 3 games. That's disastrous. So Minnesota fans, if you feel like you're panicked, I'm right there with you. Even though I'm not, a Minnesota fan, but I'm married to one, and she's already kind of frustrated with what she's been seeing, and I can't disagree with her. They don't hold leads well. Their defensive structure is all over the place, and they're not getting the saves they need either from Fleury or from Gustafsson. So it's been a tough start. Calgary, Flames fans are happy. Oh, Flames fans, and they should be. And after last night's game, there's no reason they shouldn't be excited about this season. They were down 2-0 after one. They come back and win 3-2. As I said, a lot of comeback victories in the NHL this year. Philadelphia, comeback victories. They're all about the comeback victories. So Calgary showing that as well. A little different than last year. Last year's template seemed to be get ahead and win the game. This year it seems to be let them feel good about themselves for a while, and then we'll come back and win the game anyways. So we'll see how that formula works for them, as defenses should improve as the season goes along. Vegas, I'm going to put Vegas right about here. So Vegas, still positive, still good feeling. Last night's loss, probably a little bit of a frustration for them. They fall from the ranks of the undefeated. But, yeah, I mean, 3-1 after 4 games is pretty good. They're a solid team up from top to bottom. Logan Thompson's looked very good to start the season, and that's good news because they're not going to have Leonard all year. So the better that we see Thompson play, the better chances there are that Vegas is back in the playoffs, which, of course, all hockey fans are looking forward to. For the Kings, I'm going to throw them right here, above the line a little bit. This road trip has gone well, and they get the shootout victory last night. Velarde looks fantastic. A lot of the young players are coming together. I think Byfield's had a good start to the season as well, while people are ready to write him off. So for the Kings, this has been a solid start-ish, in that they had a couple of losses there, and their overall record not fantastic, but good enough that I'm going to put them above the line. I don't think there's any panic there. And it's a better start than they had last season when they made the playoffs. Seattle, I'll put them next to the concerned face here. Not panic, but concerned. Early, the first 2 games, they looked good. It looked like maybe a lot of the issues they had last season had been worked out, and this team was going to play better. Now the realities started to creep back in. They're having problems getting saves. Their defensive structure seems to be failing a little bit. And, I mean, losing against Carolina is not like an embarrassment, or Vegas. But what's been exposed is this team still has a lot of work to do. So for Seattle, I've got them in the concerned area, not panicked yet. We'll see if they get to panic later. Oilers are tough. I'm not going to have, and this looks like it's basically Canadian franchises hanging out here together, but I'm going to put the Oilers a little bit below the line. Is there a reason for panic? I think panic's overstating it. However, playing a full 60 minutes is important, and Edmonton hasn't done that yet. Edmonton's having trouble putting their game together. And against Buffalo, they got goalied. Eric Comrie was fantastic. So the Oilers would have won that game, I think, if almost any other goaltender had been in there. Comrie was just dialed in. But still, losing at home against Buffalo, there's some reason for concern there. That loss, of course, helps Buffalo feel really good about themselves at 2-1 to start the season. But while I don't think there's reason for panic, like I've seen people saying, well, there's a goalie controversy. I don't think there is. I don't think Skinner last night played well enough to steal the job from Campbell. I think Campbell still gets the next couple of starts and a chance to turn things around. Next up is Anaheim. Where were we expecting Anaheim to finish? Not in the playoffs. However, I think there's probably some concern with Duck fans in the fact that they've just looked bad the last couple of games. They got off to a good start against New Jersey, multi-goal lead, and then it fell apart because early NHL numbers and all that. But yeah, for Anaheim, I don't think there's a panic because they weren't expected to get better, whereas New Jersey, I think the expectation was they get better, and early results have been mixed. But for Anaheim, we kind of expected them to be out of the playoffs anyways, so I don't see any reason to panic. Vancouver, I'm using one of my fin magnets for this. There's a reason I'm popular right now. So I was interviewed on Sakaris and Price a couple days ago. There's a CBC program that wants to talk to me today. There's a reason for this because Vancouver's, well, they're just not playing well. 4 straight games they've had multi-goal leads and they've blown it. 60 minutes, I think they play a good 20 minutes in each game. 40 minutes, maybe. 60 is not a possibility with this team to this point. There's some lazy passes. I think there's a lack of focus in some ways. And now the frustration's setting in. You could see the frustration last night. When you start seeing guys snapping their sticks and guys talking to themselves going to the bench, you know that things aren't necessarily going well. So for Vancouver, it has been a mostly disastrous start. I say mostly because it really has been completely disastrous, but I'm trying to put some kind of positivity on it. As I said in last night's review, at this point, I'm kind of like, okay, just if they don't win a game this year, I guess, because for me, the worst case scenario, and this is something that I think a lot of fans understand, when your team goes through that mediocre period where they're almost good enough to be in the playoffs, and a GM goes, well, we're not that far away. And we've had that in Vancouver many times over. So I almost prefer that if they're going to be bad, just be nightmarishly bad. Get it out of the way, get her done. And I mean, if it ends up blowing up the core, well, I don't expect a Stanley Cup in my lifetime for the Canucks anyways. I did laugh when I was talking about the Canucks Stanley Cup opportunity this season, when I was talking about when it was the coming season. So I didn't expect this start. I expected at least 2 wins on the road trip, and we're not going to get 2. We might get 1. In order to get 1, they got to beat the Wild tomorrow, and the Wild are down here with them. San Jose is last on the board, and I'm going to put them down here. I'm going to put them on the panic side because they weren't expected to be in the playoffs either, but this 0-5 start has been awful. And it has been worse than expected, and I think San Jose might be one of those teams too that at this point an 0-5 start, this means that if they win 5 in a row, they get back to 500. Well, 500 doesn't get you in the playoffs. So now you have to keep winning. You have to keep, it becomes difficult. So if they lose a couple more games here, Mike Greer's job gets that much more, becomes that much more of a challenge. And so we'll see where San Jose ends up. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Did I get it right? Maybe, maybe not. Let me know your thoughts. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe. If you're browsing your way through, you just happened upon this video. And if a team you cheer for is up against Chicago or Arizona soon, don't take those games lightly. When teams do, they can get burned. That being said, thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.